The moment the bass dropped hard enough to rattle the photos off my wall, I thought we were under attack. I jumped off the couch, halfway reaching for my sidearm, only to realize that the threat wasn't foreign or domestic. No, it was local, and entitled. Through the window, I could see a red carpet rolled out across my driveway, a dozen folding chairs lined up as though it were the Oscars, and a woman in high heels barking orders at a man who was struggling to set up a cotton candy machine. It was 9 in the morning, I was supposed to be on leave, and I hadn't even had my coffee yet. I stepped outside, still in joggers and a worn t-shirt, expecting maybe some sort of neighborhood block party mishap. What I didn't expect was to be immediately accosted by a woman with aggressively layered blonde hair, oversized sunglasses, and a sash that read "Hostess" in glittering gold letters. She looked at me as though I'd just tracked mud into Buckingham Palace. "Excuse me," she screeched, pointing at my truck like it was a rotting carcass. "You can't park that there. You're blocking the entrance." I blinked. "The entrance to what?" "My charity event," she said, like I was an idiot. "We're hosting a red carpet gala for local influencers. Guests will be arriving in an hour. That truck ruins the aesthetic." I slowly turned to look at my truck. It was parked right in front of my garage, on my gravel driveway, my property, which I had bought 3 years ago. No HOA. No shared lots. No obligations to cater to anyone's aesthetic. I turned back to her. "This is my driveway," I said calmly. "You're on my property." She waved dismissively. "We cleared it with the HOA. It's communal." I blinked again. "There's no HOA." She sniffed. "Well, someone said we could use it." "And who was that?" She hesitated. "Derek." "Who's Derek?" She paused again, like she was piecing it together. "My event planner's cousin. He said he knew the area." I nearly laughed. This woman had taken over my front yard based on the word of a guy named Derek, who may or may not even exist, and was now demanding I move my truck to make way for her fake Oscars. At that moment, a crew started unloading massive speakers from a rented van and plopped them right onto the lawn next to my hydrangeas. I stepped forward. "Ma'am, you need to move this event off my property immediately." "You're being very aggressive," she said, stepping back like I'd just pulled a sword on her. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." I stared at her, incredulous. "Leave my own driveway?" "Yes," she snapped. "This is a professional event. You're making people uncomfortable." I hadn't seen anyone else yet, aside from the caterer and the poor guy sweating buckets, trying to get the margarita machine hooked up. Still, she whipped out her phone and dialed with dramatic speed. "Yes, hello. I'd like to report a man threatening me and refusing to leave during a permitted charity event." I actually chuckled. "You called the police?" She looked at me smugly. "Yes. You'll be gone in 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, 2 squad cars pulled up, lights flashing. The first officer out of the car was a young guy named Rojos, fresh on the force but someone I'd worked with before. The moment he saw me, his eyes widened like a kid caught skipping class. "Trooper Marshall," he said, half bowing. "Sir, what's going on?" I motioned to the chaos around me. "Karen here, I haven't caught her real name, but it felt right, decided to host an unauthorized red carpet gala in my driveway." Karen stepped forward, inserting herself between us. "Officer, he's being difficult and aggressive. This is supposed to be a peaceful event." Rojos looked at her, then back at me, clearly confused. "This is your property, right?" "Yes," I said. "And she's trespassing." Karen's mouth fell open. "You're a cop." "I'm a state trooper," I said, "and a homeowner. 2 things you should have figured out before calling 911. She sputtered. Well, you're abusing your power. I'm going to call your boss. You can't intimidate people just because you have a badge." I pulled out my phone. Want me to call him for you? He's probably free. Rojos tried not to laugh. The second officer, an older guy who'd clearly seen some things, walked up behind him. "Ma'am, do you have any permits for this event?" the older officer asked. Karen crossed her arms. "It's a private charity event. I don't need permits. It's for a good cause." "What's the charity?" I asked. "It's a foundation for emerging influencers." Rojos raised an eyebrow. "That's not a charity." Karen's face turned crimson. "You're just trying to ruin this because you're jealous. This was supposed to be my big comeback." "Comeback from what?" I asked. She didn't answer, just huffed and stormed off toward the caterer, yelling something about the patriarchy. I looked at the officers. "Well," I said, "looks like I'm hosting a party." They laughed. One of them radioed it in as a civil misunderstanding, but Rojos offered to stick around for a bit, just in case Karen decided to get creative. I thanked him and went inside to finally get my coffee, wondering how far Karen was going to push this. 10 minutes later, she was back. This time, she had a man in a suit with a clipboard, looking completely out of place. "I found someone from the city," she shouted. "He's here to shut you down." The man waved nervously. "Actually, ma'am, I'm just here for building inspections." I sipped my coffee from the porch. This is going to be fun. And somehow, I just knew this wasn't over. The next morning, I woke up hoping that maybe, just maybe, Karen had come to her senses overnight. Perhaps the red carpet, the ridiculous tent, the DJ booth, and the mysterious margarita machine would all be gone, along with her fever dream of a charity gala. But when I stepped outside, instead of peace and quiet, I was greeted by the blaring sound of a leaf blower being used indoors and a woman screeching about tablecloth alignment. Karen was still there. In fact, it looked like she had doubled down. Overnight, she'd added balloon arches, 2 more folding tables, and, unbelievably, a rented inflatable swan pool float, sitting in the middle of my driveway for absolutely no reason. My driveway was now a fully operational, wildly illegal event space. I stood at the edge of the porch, sipping my coffee like a man watching a storm roll in, except this storm was wearing designer heels and was currently berating a teenage volunteer for not fluffing the swag bags correctly. Something inside me snapped. I put down my coffee, walked back inside, and opened the manila folder where I kept all my property records, survey maps, and every receipt since I bought the place. Then, I opened another drawer and pulled up my camera system monitor. The motion detection logs from the previous day were glowing like Christmas lights. Every step Karen had taken, every time she stomped across the gravel, every time she screamed at someone or tripped over a power cord, it was all on camera. I decided to start with the city. I called my buddy Nate at the County Code Enforcement Office, someone who owed me a favor or two. Nate picked up groggily but perked up when I mentioned the unauthorized red carpet gala. "You're joking," he said. "I wish I was," I replied. "Do you have any records of a permit for this event out here?" After a few minutes of searching, Nate confirmed what I already suspected: there was no event filed, no permit requested, and certainly nothing in the system for Karen's name or the fake-sounding foundation she kept spouting about. "Want me to come by?" he asked. "Bring your clipboard," I said. 30 minutes later, Nate rolled up in his county-marked car, stepping out with half an official air, half a curiosity about what kind of circus he was walking into. Karen spotted him immediately and swooped in like a hawk. "Finally," she said, grabbing Nate's arm. "I've been trying to reach someone to deal with this aggressive man threatening my event. Are you code enforcement?" Nate smiled politely. "Yes, ma'am. I'm here to inspect the validity of the event setup. Can I see your permit documents?" She laughed, not nervously, not politely, but with a forced confidence that reminded me of people who try to bluff their way through airport security. "Of course," she said. "Let me get them." She reached into her purse and pulled out a crumpled stack of papers that looked like they had been printed at a gas station 5 minutes ago. Nate took them, examined the headers, and his eyebrows immediately furrowed. "These don't match our forms," he said. "They're copies," she replied quickly. I had to adjust the layout to fit the flyer format. "You edited a legal permit form to fit your flyer?" he asked. "It's a graphic design thing," she snapped. Nate gave me a quick glance. That was all I needed. "Karen," I said, "can you explain why your permit has the city logo in the wrong font and lists the event supervisor as Derek W.? Is that the same Derek who approved using my property?" She looked like she'd just swallowed a pine cone. "I'm not required to answer anything without legal representation." "Great," Nate said. "Because forging or modifying an official document is a violation of city code. We're going to have to shut this down." Karen's voice shot up an octave. "You can't shut it down. Guests are already arriving. I have a VIP list." I looked down the road and saw 2 sedans and a very confused man in a tuxedo standing by a folding sign that read, "Influencer entrance, this way." A group of 3 girls in matching yoga sets was taking selfies in front of my truck, which they apparently thought was part of the aesthetic. Karen's eyes darted around wildly, trying to salvage her event. Then, she spotted something. Her whole demeanor shifted. "Look," she said, grabbing Nate's arm again and pointing toward the side of my house. "See that power box? We're plugged into that outlet. Doesn't that make it communal? If the power's accessible, it's shared, right?" Nate blinked at her. "You're using his power?" I felt my stomach drop. I hadn't even noticed the extension cord running from the side outlet, usually used for Christmas lights, all the way across the driveway to the margarita machine. "You've been stealing my electricity?" I asked. Karen was undeterred. "It's just for the event. You can claim it on taxes. It's basically deductible." Nate and I stared at her, both of us briefly rendered speechless. She had just admitted to unauthorized use of my utilities on camera, with a county officer as a witness. And she thought I'd thank her for the deduction. Karen turned and stormed off again, this time barking into her phone. "I need you here now," she said. "Tell everyone to post. Tag the location. We're being harassed." I sighed. "She's about to go viral, isn't she?" "Oh, definitely," Nate said, "but not the way she thinks." We walked back toward my porch as a small commotion began near the entrance. A group of guests had been told they needed to turn around, and a man in a velvet jacket was angrily shouting about refunds. 5 minutes later, Karen returned, a desperate look on her face, clearly with a new plan. "I've spoken to my legal team," she said, trying to regain control. "They're on their way. This event is protected under freedom of expression." "It's not a protest," I replied calmly. "It's an artistic gathering," she countered. "And you're infringing on my rights." I shook my head. "You're on my land, temporarily." Nate made a note on his clipboard. "I'm going to log this as trespassing, unauthorized utility access, and false documentation. We'll be following up." Karen looked like she might burst into tears, but she quickly spun on her heel and shouted, "Nobody panic. Everything's under control." Someone in the crowd shouted, "The DJ left." That was the final blow. Karen's face cracked for just a moment, but she quickly plastered another smile on her face. I knew, though, that Karen wouldn't go down quietly. She was the type who always made a last-ditch, desperate move before everything came crashing down. By noon, her gala was teetering on the edge of collapse. The DJ had bailed, the power had been cut off by me, legally, of course, because she had never received permission to use it. The remaining guests wandered aimlessly around the driveway, clutching overpriced tickets and helium balloons that had long lost their air. The red carpet now sagged and gathered dust, littered with discarded programs boasting of things like live celebrity panels and exclusive gift bags for the first 50 guests. There were maybe 10 guests left, one of whom was a toddler playing with a plastic martini glass. Karen, however, still stormed around, trying to manage a scene that no one was paying attention to. She was shouting half-baked orders to people who had already tuned her out, blaming everything on everyone else but herself. Her frantic energy was palpable, and it was only a matter of time before it got worse. At exactly 12:15, a sheriff's SUV pulled up to the end of my driveway, kicking up a cloud of dust that immediately killed whatever ambience was left. The man who stepped out wore aviators, a stern expression, and a badge that made it clear this wasn't just a social visit. Sheriff Langston wasn't one for small talk. He walked straight up to me, nodded, and then turned toward the circus that had taken over my property. "You Jordan?" he asked. "Yep, thanks for coming." He squinted at the chaos. "You weren't kidding." Karen spotted him instantly. Before he could even speak, she charged at him like a reality show contestant in the middle of a drama. Finally, she said, arms spread wide. "Someone with actual authority. I need you to remove this man. He's been threatening my guests and shutting down a city-sanctioned charity event. It's discrimination. It's harassment. And frankly, it's un-American." Langston raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, I'm here to serve a cease and desist, and you're the one receiving it." Karen froze. Her mouth opened, then closed, and then opened again, like a confused goldfish. "Excuse me. You've been reported for trespassing, utility theft, and organizing a public event without a permit," Langston said. "This is your official notice to vacate the premises and cease all activities immediately." She laughed, but it was the kind of laugh you hear from someone coming undone. "That's not possible. This is my event. This is a community celebration. I have guests. We have a hashtag." Langston handed her a packet of papers. "Then you can hashtag these. You have 15 minutes to begin dismantling everything before it becomes a criminal matter." Karen's face twisted in disbelief as her carefully crafted facade cracked under the midday sun. She looked around at the scattered guests, the wilting balloon arch, and the sad folding table where 2 lukewarm chafing dishes sat untouched. Then, she turned back to the sheriff, and I saw something that looked almost like a snarl on her face. "You can't do this," she hissed. "I don't know who you are," Langston replied flatly, "and I don't need to. I have friends in the mayor's office." Karen's eyes narrowed. "They can explain city ordinances to you when they visit you in holding." She stormed off again, dialing someone on her phone so aggressively that I was half expecting her to fling it. I overheard bits of her panicked whispering, "No, it's not my house. I thought it was fine. And what do you mean Derek left town?" Ah, Derek, the elusive man behind her story. The so-called wizard of permits and power access, a figure who apparently only existed in Karen's ever-unraveling narrative. It was almost sad. Almost. As the sheriff's deputy began snapping photos of the event set up for documentation, a few guests began confronting Karen. One woman, wearing oversized sunglasses and a tight dress, jabbed a finger at Karen's face. "You told me there'd be photographers here," she snapped. "I paid $200 for exposure." A man behind her added, "And where's the open bar you promised?" Karen, still trying to salvage her performance, said, "There's been a minor technical issue. Everything's being rescheduled. You'll all get exclusive VIP access to the next event." "You mean in jail?" someone quipped, and a ripple of laughter spread through the dwindling crowd. Then came the final blow. A county investigator, not in uniform but wearing a badge clipped to his belt, approached me directly. "You Jordan Marshall?" he asked. "Yes." "You filed the complaint?" "Yes, sir." He nodded. "Mind if we step aside for a second?" I led him toward my porch, and then he dropped the bombshell. "We've been looking into this woman for a few months. Someone using multiple aliases to set up bogus charity events, collecting ticket fees, and disappearing before refund requests come in. Looks like she finally stayed in one place too long. I raised an eyebrow. She's been running a scam across 3 counties all under different business names. Yep, he replied. She never files with the IRS, never submits paperwork to the state. We've been trying to catch her in the act. Well, I said, glancing at the chaos unfolding across my property, you're welcome. Back on the driveway, Karen was still arguing, but now her voice was cracking with desperation. The sheriff had called in a tow truck to remove the Margarita machine van and the DJ's rental trailer, both of which had been illegally parked on the easement next to my fence. Karen's final Hail Mary was to claim emotional trauma. I've been under so much stress, she wailed. You don't understand what I've been through. This event was my last chance to rebuild my brand. Langston, unmoved, replied, then maybe you should have built it somewhere legal. As the guests started to clear out, many filming the scene on their phones or shaking their heads, a news crew arrived. Apparently, someone had tipped off the local station about the rogue gala being shut down by law enforcement on private property. A cameraman and reporter stood at the edge of the road, capturing footage as the inflatable swan was deflated like the ego that brought it here. One last time, Karen turned toward me, mascara smudged and dressed dusty, rage blazing in her eyes. You ruined everything, she growled. I leaned against the porch railing, arms crossed. You did that all by yourself. She didn't reply. Instead, she climbed into a rented SUV, slammed the door, and sped off, so fast that she kicked up gravel into the remaining snack table. Langston looked at me. You want to press charges? I nodded. Every single one available. He smirked. You got it. Oh, and you might want to check your mail next week. This whole thing might have made the local paper. I grinned. As long as the headline says, Karen arrested on my driveway, I'm good. The last folding chair was loaded into the back of the tow truck. The red carpet, now crumpled and stained, was tossed unceremoniously into a garbage bag. It was over, for now. But something told me Karen wasn't done causing chaos, and I wasn't done being ready for her. The next morning, I stood at the end of my freshly reclaimed driveway with a cup of coffee in one hand and a trash bag full of event flyers in the other. The only trace left of Karen's fraudulent gala was the faint imprint of the red carpet that had flattened the gravel, and a lone glitter balloon caught in my fence. For the first time in 2 days, my property was silent, peaceful, mine again. But I knew better than to assume it was truly over. Karen wasn't the type to quietly disappear after being publicly embarrassed and legally dismantled. No, Karen was the kind of person who saw herself as the victim of some grand conspiracy, a victim of a system that didn't understand her vision. So, I wasn't surprised when I got a call that afternoon from the county clerk's office, asking me to confirm my identity. Someone has filed a complaint against you, the clerk said. Karen accuses you of harassment, obstruction, and emotional damage caused by an unlawful abuse of police authority during a peaceful charity gathering. I nearly choked on my water. Karen was trying to turn the tables again. But what she didn't realize, what she never seemed to realize, was that I hadn't just let her walk into a trap. I had built it, brick by brick, with legal reinforcement. Everything she did, from stepping onto my property to using my electricity, from forging city documents to causing chaos, was all documented, time-stamped and witnessed. I had more footage on her than a Hollywood film set, and I hadn't even released all of it yet. Still, I went to the station to make it official. I sat down with the investigator and calmly laid out the entire timeline, camera footage, phone logs, emails from the county office, and even screenshots from Karen's own social media accounts, where she posted pictures of herself with the caption, Queen of the Gala, no matter what haters say. By the time I was done, the investigator looked more entertained than concerned. Well, he said, pushing the paperwork back toward me, this is one of the most thorough self-incriminations I've ever seen. She submitted a complaint and attached a flyer as evidence. The same flyer that uses a fake city logo and a made-up permit code. I raised an eyebrow. So she submitted forged evidence in an official complaint? He nodded. Yep. Which means we're filing a counterclaim for filing a false report and submitting fraudulent documents. Karen had tried to weaponize the system, but she had no idea who she was messing with. I knew exactly how the system worked. After years of collaborating with district attorneys, case processors, and code enforcement officers, I had learned the ropes inside and out. Now, I was putting that knowledge to use, and I was playing the game better than Karen ever could have imagined. I left the police station that day with a copy of the complaint in hand and a grin stretching across my face. But I wasn't heading straight home. I had one more stop to make before everything settled down. I drove across town to the old neighborhood association office, where Karen had lived before her strange disappearance and reappearance in my neighborhood. The former HOA president, a no-nonsense woman named Cheryl, had reached out to me on social media after seeing the video clips from my driveway that had gone viral. Apparently, the videos made their way into a Reddit thread titled Karen's Red Carpet Catastrophe. Cheryl met me with a folder in hand, her expression that of someone who had waited years for karma to come full circle. "I've been keeping records," she said, handing me the folder as though it were a family heirloom. When she left our neighborhood, she owed fines, lied about permits for a pool party, and once tried to rent out the clubhouse for a so-called celebrity fashion show. It turned out to be 3 Instagram models and a box of knockoff purses. I flipped through the papers, which included screenshots, violation letters, and even an email thread where Karen tried to sue the HOA for emotional distress after they shut down her fireworks display on a random Tuesday in March. She threatened to burn the whole HOA down, Cheryl added, sipping her coffee. We took it metaphorically at the time. Maybe we shouldn't have. I thanked Cheryl, took the folder, and added it to my growing collection. The pieces were falling into place. Karen wasn't just entitled, she was a serial scammer, hopping from one neighborhood to another, using buzzwords like influencer, nonprofit, and community event to hide her shady operations. But now, she had crossed paths with someone who could match her energy, not with chaos, but with the law on his side and a whole lot of training. By the end of the week, the fraud task force had expanded their investigation into Karen's past events. Her accounts were being monitored, and her so-called emerging influencer foundation was flagged for tax evasion and failure to file for nonprofit status with the state. Just when I thought things couldn't get crazier, I received a call from a local journalist. "Hey, is this Jordan Marshall?" the reporter asked. "I'm working on a story called From Red Carpet to Handcuffs, The Downfall of a DIY Diva. Can I get a quote?" I laughed. "Sure, use this. If you build your empire on someone else's driveway, don't be surprised when it gets towed." The article went live 2 days later, and it was a hit. The piece included screenshots of Karen mid-scream, footage of her bribing an inspector, and a photo of her deflating the inflatable swan with one shoe off and mascara smeared across her face. It went viral, not just locally, but across social media. People started digging into her past. Old Yelp reviews, outdated websites, and even a blog post from 2018 where she claimed to be the next Martha Stewart, but hotter and with more followers. The internet was unforgiving. Memes flooded in. Someone photoshopped her face onto a Monopoly board square labeled, "Go directly to jail." "Do not pass gala." "Do not collect donations." Karen responded through what was likely a burner Instagram account, claiming she was the victim of a targeted harassment campaign orchestrated by a rogue cop with a personal vendetta. Her comments section was brutal. Meanwhile, I took advantage of the story's newfound popularity to do something productive. I partnered with a legitimate local nonprofit that supported young entrepreneurs and helped them organize real community events. We ended up organizing a neighborhood fundraiser, this time with permits, real food trucks, and, most importantly, no glitter sashes. At the event, someone handed me a custom-made sign, a sturdy metal plaque with bold lettering that read, "Private Property." Trespassers will be prosecuted, filmed, and possibly featured in a viral meme. I installed it at the edge of my driveway as both a warning and a reminder. Karen had underestimated me. She saw a guy in sweats with a truck and thought I was just another obstacle in her way. What she got instead was a state trooper with a camera system, a legal team on speed dial, and a whole internet community ready to watch her fall. A month after the driveway debacle, the town felt quieter. Maybe it was just the natural return to normal after the chaos. Or maybe it was because Karen had gone completely silent since the article dropped. No tweets. No cryptic Instagram stories. Not even a new fake charity website. Part of me wondered if she had finally learned her lesson. But another, more realistic part of me suspected she was somewhere regrouping, probably at a discount day spa, plotting how to spin her downfall into some sort of redemption arc. Either way, I had moved on, or at least I tried to. The red carpet grooves in the gravel had faded, the event flyers had long been discarded, and the local bakery had even named a cupcake after the whole ordeal. It was vanilla with edible glitter and red fondant, aptly called Karen's Gala Disaster. The cupcake sold out every Saturday. Life had surprisingly improved. My bosses at the state trooper's office were more than happy with how I handled the situation. They made a quiet example of it, showing how to de-escalate, document, and respond professionally under insane circumstances. I was invited to a few leadership panels, shared my experience at training sessions, and even received a fancy little plaque from the governor's office for community service and public engagement in the face of adversity. I didn't think a driveway party qualified as adversity, but hey, it looked good in my home office. Even more surprisingly, I received an outpouring of support from people in my town. Neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years dropped off thank you cards. Local business owners who had dealt with Karen in the past came forward, sharing stories and screenshots that helped build a stronger case against her. The fraud unit called me once a week with updates, and each time they uncovered more of her scams: fake wedding planning services, a bogus online course for aspiring influencers, and one truly bizarre attempt where she claimed she could teach pets how to go viral on social media. Spoiler alert, she couldn't. Eventually, the district attorney made their move. Karen was officially charged with multiple offenses: trespassing, falsifying public records, theft of utilities, wire fraud, and filing a false police report. They added an obstruction charge after she tried to shift the blame onto her imaginary assistant, Tammy, a woman who, according to all evidence, had never existed. Karen tried to hire a defense attorney with the last of her stolen ticket funds, but by then, that account had been frozen. She ended up with a court-appointed lawyer, who, to their credit, looked more exhausted after every hearing. The trial date was set, and I was called to testify. I showed up in full uniform, not because I had to, but because I knew it would bother her. When Karen walked into the courtroom, she looked like a ghost of the woman who had strutted across my driveway with a clipboard and a megaphone. Dressed plainly, with her hair pulled back tightly and minimal makeup, she was a far cry from the glitter-clad diva. When she saw me, she actually tried to wink. The prosecution laid it all out: forged documents, unlicensed events, unauthorized use of private property and utilities. They showed video after video, each one capturing her tantrums, threats, and lies. At one point, they even played the moment she told a county official that she had more followers than the mayor. Her defense team tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding. They argued that Karen believed she had permission, that she was misled by her mysterious Derek, who, once again, failed to appear or even exist. The judge wasn't buying it. When I took the stand, I kept it simple. I told the truth, just as I had from the beginning. I explained how Karen had shown up uninvited, refused to leave, and tried to turn a scam into a spectacle right on my property. I also explained how I had documented everything, involving the right departments and handling it all by the book. The judge seemed to appreciate my restraint, especially when Karen interrupted once to shout, "This is a personal vendetta." After a long week of testimony, the verdict came in, guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to community service, fined heavily, and placed on probation with restricted internet access. The judge even issued a unique order: any attempt to organize events, either in person or online, would require city approval and a monitored escrow fund. Karen stormed out of the courtroom with what little dignity she had left. Her final words to the press were, "I'll rise again. This isn't the end." I watched her walk away, thinking, no, it probably wasn't the end for her. But for me, it was closure. Back home, I decided to commemorate the saga in my own way. I installed a new mailbox post at the entrance of my property. Beneath it, I placed a small, sturdy sign made from reclaimed wood, etched with precision. It read, "Private property. Trespassers will be prosecuted, filmed, and possibly featured on the evening news." The neighbors loved it. People took pictures. Someone even made bumper stickers that started showing up at local shops. Then, one sunny Saturday, I hosted my own event. Not a red carpet gala, not a pop-up scam, but a real community block party. The nonprofit I had partnered with came out in full force. Local artists painted murals, small business owners set up booths, and kids danced to music played by a local band. We had permits, parking, and food trucks that didn't need to steal electricity. The mayor stopped by, posed for pictures, and even bought one of the glitter cupcakes. He gave a short speech, laughing about how sometimes the wildest things make the best lessons. I stood off to the side, content. The property that Karen had once tried to use as a platform for her scam was now being used for something real, something that gave back. Toward the end of the day, as the sun dipped low and the music faded, someone asked, "Do you think you'll ever hear from her again?" "I doubt it," I said. "But if I do, she's going to find a driveway she doesn't want to step foot on twice." It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even justice. It was balance. Karen had tried to hijack my space, my peace, and my authority. In the end, she gave me something instead: a way to connect with my neighbors, improve my town, and turn a disaster into a story people would be telling for years. And yeah, maybe I got a cupcake named after me, too. The State Trooper Special. Chocolate with a surprise caramel center and a tiny candy badge on top. Justice never tasted so sweet.